Welcome everybody here today. We're going to wait just a few minutes to let people get entered into the webinar, so give us just a few minutes before we'll start. For those just joining us, we're giving a couple of minutes to let people join the webinar, and I'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started as people continue to come in. Good morning, and thank you all for joining the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for our Transit and Shuttle Bus Program webinar. I am Melanie Henderson, the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program Manager, and I am joined by additional DAQ staff who manage other aspects of the Volkswagen settlement, as well as Heather Hildebrandt with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. All attendees will be muted during the webinar. Questions can be submitted in the Q&A box and will be addressed during the question and answer time if not covered in the presentation. The raised hand feature will be disabled until the question and answer time and will only be considered for those who called into the webinar by phone. For those calling in, pressing *3 will raise your hand and pressing *3 again will lower your hand. All other attendees must use the Q&A box to submit questions. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our Volkswagen website at a later date. Finally, we have scheduled 2 hours to discuss the Transit and Shuttle Bus program, but if we complete everything and answer all questions with time to spare, we have the option to adjourn early. If we are not able to answer all questions by the end of our time, we will let you know how to get your questions to us. When today's presentation becomes available on our website, be aware that links found in the slides will only be active when used in presentation mode. During today's webinar, you will get an overview of the Transit and Shuttle Bus program and when and how you can submit your application, the scoring criteria we will be using to evaluate completed applications, and where you can find additional information after this webinar. At the end of the presentation, we will have time to answer any questions you may have. As a reminder, this is not a public forum for comments on how the Volkswagen settlement is being implemented. The Phase 2 Transit and Shuttle Bus RFP was released on February 1st, 2022. Applications also opened up in our grant management system that day as well. In order to apply, you will need to be registered in our grant management system if you are not already. If you are going to apply and are not registered, we recommend you go ahead and get registered with our grant management system as soon as possible. Do not wait to do this, since much of the process is handled through other state agencies and we have no control over how long the entire process will take. Applications will be open for a total of 90 days, so the deadline to apply is May 2nd, 2022. We strongly encourage you to not wait until the last minute to apply. The application deadline for the Transit and Shuttle Bus program will not be extended. This is a reimbursement program. For awarded projects, you will need to order, pay for, and receive the bus first before you would receive any funds from this program. For Phase 2, we have combined Phase 2 and 3 funding for a total of just under $68 million total for all of the various Volkswagen programs. As was done in Phase 1, 20%, or approximately $13.5 million total, has been allocated towards the Transit and Shuttle Bus program in Phase 2. Just like with Phase 1, all fuel types for eligible buses qualify for potential funding in Phase 2. However, in Phase 2, priority will be given to all electric replacement buses. This will be explained more later in this presentation. If you are not already signed up for our mailing list, I recommend you do so. This is how we distribute information on all of the various Volkswagen settlement programs, including the Transit and Shuttle Bus program. Send an email to this email address with the word subscribe in the subject line to get signed up. In addition to the Phase 2 Volkswagen funding, DEQ is working with the North Carolina Department of Transportation to provide up to an additional $6 million in CMAQ funding towards all-electric replacement buses. For applicants located in areas that are CMAQ eligible, all electric projects will be considered for this funding. If an applicant from a CMAQ eligible area applies for an all-electric bus and is awarded funding, 80% of the incremental cost of the all-electric replacement bus would come from CMAQ funds, while the remaining 20% of the incremental cost would come from Volkswagen funding. This map shows the areas in North Carolina that are considered CMAQ eligible. For counties where only a portion of the county is CMAQ eligible, the project would have to be located in the CMAQ eligible area to be considered for that funding. So what is an eligible vehicle? For the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program, Class 4 through 8 buses that provide public transportation or buses that provide transportation services for one or more specific entities, intra-terminal or intra-facility transportation services, or mobility on-demand services are eligible under the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. This can include the school bus style bus when it is not used for carrying students to and from school or related events. Who can apply for funding under Phase 2? Eligible applicants include local, state, and tribal government organizations. Projects can also be submitted by public or private nonprofit organizations. Public and private partnerships may also apply, but the lead applicant in this situation must represent a public sector or public-private nonprofit entity. Eligible buses must be Class 4 through 8 transit and shuttle buses. The engine model year of the bus being replaced must be diesel and be model year 2009 or older. This model year requirement is not negotiable as it is a requirement of the Volkswagen settlement. The old diesel bus may be replaced with a new diesel or alternative fueled or all-electric bus. The replacement bus must have an engine model year of award or year prior, meaning for Phase 2, model year 2022 or 2021 for the Phase 2 funding. The old diesel bus that is being replaced must be scrapped. So what do I mean by scrapped? The bus shall be rendered inoperable and available for recycling, and at a minimum, a 3-inch hole shall be cut in the engine block for all engines. For the vehicle body type being replaced, the frame vehicle body being replaced, the frame rails of the chassis must also be cut completely in half. The old bus cannot be sold or traded, it must be scrapped. For Phase 2, 100% of the cost of a new diesel or alternative fuel transit or shuttle bus, such as propane, CNG, or hybrid, are eligible for government-owned vehicles. For all electric replacement transit and shuttle buses for government entities, in addition to the 100% cost for the vehicle, up to $75,000 for charging infrastructure associated with the new all-electric transit or shuttle bus is also eligible for funding. This is limited to 1 charger per bus being applied for. For transit and shuttle buses owned by non-government entities, funding will be limited to 25% of the cost of the new diesel or alternative fueled bus. For non-government owned buses where the replacement vehicle will be an all-electric transit bus or shuttle bus, funding will be limited to 75% of the cost of the new vehicle. So now we want to take a look at our grant management system. To request access to the DAQ grant management system, the first thing you will need to do is get an NCID if you don't already have one. You will go to this website, ncid.nc.gov, and click on Register in the lower right-hand corner of the blue box. On this slide, we have also provided links for the NCID website as well as the How to Create an NCID guide. For more details on how to do this, we have a slide presentation and webinar recording on our website that you can view that goes into this process in a little more detail. Once you have successfully obtained a NCID, you will need to complete 2 forms and submit them to our Grant Management System Security Coordinator at this email address, the svc.ncvw application email address, in order to get access. The first is a completed substitute W-9 form. The second is a DAQ Access Authorization form. Links for both of these forms can be found on our webpage. Each organization is allowed up to 3 authorized users in the DAQ grant management system. Once your access has been granted, you should receive an email notifying you that you do have access. Our grant management system can be accessed at this website address. Instructions for the grant management system, as well as an external user manual that we developed for your use, can be found on our website as well. Once you have logged into the DAQ grant management system, I highly recommend you check out the DAQ Training Library. This will help you get a better idea on how to search for applications, submit and edit applications, and other actions within the grant management system. While I will be touching on some of these later in the presentation, you can always go back to the DAQ Training Library in the grant management system at any point after you have access to it to be reminded of how to perform certain tasks and actions within the system itself. So let's talk about the application for a moment. In order for your application to be considered complete, additional attachments must be uploaded to our grant management system after you have submitted the application itself. In addition to the signed and submitted application, you will need to upload a completed copy of the diesel bus and vehicle Excel spreadsheet, which includes information for all of the buses that are included in your application. You must also include a copy of the quote for all of the replacement vehicles included in your application and listed on your Excel spreadsheet. Also, for any all-electric replacement vehicles where you are also requesting funding for charging infrastructure, you must also include an itemized charger budget. Please be aware that you can only apply for one charger for each vehicle replacement that you are requesting in your application. If you are a nonprofit organization, you also must upload a copy of your charitable solicitation license from the North Carolina Department of the Secretary of State. In addition to the required documentation and attachments for the application, you do have the option to also upload any supporting documentation. This can be letters of support from your local town council or county commissioners or anything else of that sort. As a reminder, the deadline to submit your completed application and all supporting documents is May 2nd, 2022. Also, if at any point you have any questions after today's webinar, you can send an email to this email address with the subject line Transit Program Questions. So once you have access to the DAQ grant management system, there are several pieces of information you need to get together before starting your application. This includes any information about the project you are planning, as well as your organization's federal tax ID. Much of the information listed here in this checklist relates to specifics about the old diesel bus you will be replacing, as well as information on the new bus. All of the bus-specific information will be used to complete the Excel spreadsheet, one of the required attachments to the completed application. The spreadsheet, a copy of this list, as well as additional checklists and resources can be found on our website. So, once you have access to the DAQ grant management system and you have gathered all of the information that you will need, you are ready to start your application. This is the home screen once you are logged into the DAQ grant management system. In order to start your application, you are going to want to click on Create New Application. So this screen is going to pop up, and the easiest way to locate the application for the Phase 2 Transit and Shuttle Bus Program is to click the search button on this screen. This will pull up a list of all the Volkswagen applications open at that time you are in the grant management system. Once you've clicked that search button, the result list will populate. You should see the Phase 2 Transit and Shuttle Bus Program in this list. You will want to click on the blue highlighted text under the Application Form column in order to open the correct application for the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. In order to complete the application, there are a total of 5 tabs here in the green bar along the top of the screen: Project, Contact, Budget, Project Details, and Certification. On the first tab labeled Project, this is the information you will need to complete. You have organization information at the top, which includes organization name, tax ID number, and project title, followed by the project details. You must select Transit Bus Replacement for the program type here, as you are applying under the Phase 2 Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. The bottom section, Project Location, is the address and geographic coordinates for where the bus will be based. The latitude and longitude must be entered in the same format as shown here in this example. All of the fields on this screen are required and will need to be completed prior to you submitting your application. Once you have filled in all the fields, you have the option to click on the check button to make sure you are not missing any information on this screen. However, I recommend you do not do this now, as it will show you all the errors and missing information for the entire application. You can also click the Save and Close button. If you do this, it will save the information you have entered so far, but take you completely out of the application. So if you're wanting to enter additional information in the application, I recommend you just click the Next button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So this is the screen for the contact information. We require 3 points of contact for each application. This can all be the same person or 3 different people. If your authorized representative is also your project manager or your financial contact, you do have the option to just click on the Copy from Authorized Representative button in each section, and the information will be copied over. As with the first page, all of the fields are required to be completed under the Contact tab. Once you have filled in all the fields, click on the Next button at the bottom right corner of the screen to be forwarded to the budget screen. On this screen, you will want to enter all of your overall budget information. You will want to enter the amounts in each field as whole dollar amounts. Do not include any cents or partial dollar amounts. You are not required to enter an amount in every field, but if you do have other funding, you do have to specify what that other funding is. So if you have federal funds towards your vehicle, for example, you would enter that information in the last column next to the amount of other funding on the same line. As with the other screens, once you have entered all the information, click on the Next button to move to the next screen. The project details section of the application is made up of a total of 6 questions. Questions 1 through 5 are required, and question number 6 is optional. One thing I do want to point out is that there are character limits for responses to each of the questions in the application form. You will not be able to enter additional information here beyond the number of allowed characters. But if you feel there is additional information you want to include, you may enter it under question number 6, which I will show you in a moment, or as an attachment to this application form. I will be explaining how to do this in just a bit on another slide. So these are the first 3 questions. In question 1, you will want to provide a detailed project description. In question 2, explain how your request for funding fits into North Carolina's Phase 2 Beneficiary Mitigation Plan. If you have not already done so, I recommend you review our mitigation plan, which can be found on the Volkswagen settlement website. Question 3 wants you to tell us how this project fits into your organization's plan to reduce NOx and other emissions from old diesel vehicles. Is this part of an overall fleet transition or the beginning of a fleet transition to a cleaner diesel, alternative fueled, or all electric vehicles? Explain that in more detail here in question number 3. In question 4, we want to know how this project is going to benefit your community and the customers you serve. Tell us what are the co-benefits that the project will provide if awarded to your own community. Question 5 wants you to explain the feasibility of the project. Provide details of how you as the applicant and your organization have the capability and experience to execute your proposed project. For the last question, which as a reminder is optional, please provide any additional information that you feel will help us in evaluating your project that you have not already provided to us in the other questions. Also, if you want to provide additional details for one of the previous questions, this is an option for entering that information. Once you have completed the questions under the project details, click on the Next button at the bottom of the screen. The certification screen is the last screen of the application form. On this screen, we have included the certification, the name, title, and date of the application. You do not need to worry about filling in the date. That field will auto-populate once you submit your application. My recommendation at this point is for you to check your application by clicking on the yellow check button. This will review your application and make sure you have completed all of the required fields. If you have missed anything, you will be notified of what is missing in bright red on the top portion of the screen. You can then go back using either the previous button in the lower left corner of the screen or clicking on the appropriate section in the green bar along the top of the screen. If everything is complete, it will tell you that everything is good. If this is your first time entering information in the application form, my recommendation to you is to click the Save and Close button. If you hit the Submit button, you cannot make any changes to your application. By clicking on the Save and Close button, all of your information will be saved and you will get a confirmation screen. This is the confirmation screen. It shows that your application has been saved. It also shows the application ID assigned to your application. You can make note of this ID, but that is not required. I will show you why in just a bit. You do at this point have the option to add attachments to your application by clicking on the Choose File button and then the Attach button. It is not required to attach documents prior to application submittal, but I just wanted to point out that you do have that option. So now we're taking a look back at the main screen of the DAQ grant management system. You have already entered the information in your application form, but you have not yet submitted the application. What do you do now? In order to continue working on your saved application form, you will want to click on the Edit Application Form button in the list on the screen. You have the option to edit the application and save the information as many times as you need prior to submitting the application. So this is the screen that'll come up. You have a couple of options to find your application in the grant management system. If you have the entire application ID that was assigned to your application form, you can enter it next to Application ID field and then press Search. A bit easier method is just to click the Search button. This will pull up a list of all of your applications in the grant management system. Once you see the application you want to continue working on, click on the blue highlighted field in the left column next to the application you want to access. You can go through each screen and update and review any information you have previously saved in the application form. Once you have completely filled out the application form and are ready to submit an application, make sure you have clicked on the box next to by checking this box. Type in your name and title into the appropriate boxes. As I said before, the grant management system will automatically fill in the date field, so you do not need to worry about filling that in. Once you are ready to submit your application, click on the green Submit button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Once you have submitted your application, you will be unable to make any additional changes. Make sure you are done and your application is complete before you hit that Submit button. If you are unsure or are going to make additional changes, then click on the Save and Close button instead. Only click the Submit button once you are ready to submit it. Once you have finally decided to submit your application in the grant management system, this confirmation screen will pop up. Your application is now submitted but not complete. You still need to attach the required documents, including the spreadsheet, vehicle quote, and anything else you may need or want to attach to the application. One option you have for doing this is on this screen. You can choose Files to attach to the application and then click the Attach button. Individual file sizes are limited to 100 megabits. There is no limit to the number of files that you can attach, at least not that we know of. Another option for attaching files to a submitted application is through the home screen in the DAQ grant management system. Once you have submitted an application, your only option is to select View Application. As I said before, if you have your application ID, you can enter it in this spot and then hit search. Entering the application ID is not required. If you just hit the search button, it will pull up a list of all your applications in the grant management system. Once your list of application comes up on the screen, click the blue highlighted text in the left-hand column of your application that you wish to view. The screen will then open so you can view the information in your application. Since your application has been submitted at this point, you can no longer add or change any information in the application form itself. You can, however, add attachments to the application. If you scroll down the screen, you will see a section labeled Attachments. If you want to add attachments to the application, click on the word attachment next to the symbol for a new file, and a small screen will pop up that will let you add attachments. You will need to repeat this step by clicking on the word attachment next to the new file symbol for each attachment you wish to add. Once you are done adding attachments to the application, you will need to click on the word Save in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. This will save those attachments to the application. If you don't click the word Save, the attachments will not be saved to your submitted application. There are several things you should make note of if you are going to apply for the Volkswagen settlement funds under the Transit and Shuttle Bus program. The engine model year of the old diesel bus you are wanting to replace must be 2009 or older. There are no exceptions to this, as it is specifically spelled out in the Volkswagen settlement itself. Also, increases in fleet size are not allowed. You must be replacing an existing diesel bus with a new bus. You cannot receive Volkswagen settlement funds for just purchasing a new bus. The replacement bus must be like for like with the original bus. So if you have a Class 4 bus you want to replace, you must replace it with a Class 4 bus. Class 8 for Class 8, and so on. Budget information in the application should be as accurate as possible. Make sure to enter those amounts as whole dollar amounts. When evaluating projects, we will consider partial funding as appropriate when making award decisions. Essay questions will be used to assist in evaluating projects that score similarly to help us determine awardees. Also, we will only accept completed applications that have been submitted through the grant management system with all of the required attachments. We will not accept applications any other way, including paper, scanned, emailed, or fax. And applications will not be accepted after the deadline. Most importantly, if you are awarded funding from the Volkswagen settlement, do not sign any agreements with vendors or start work until your contract is fully executed. An application award letter is not a fully executed contract. As I've said before, if you have not already signed up for our mailing list, I recommend you do so. This is how we distribute information on all the various Volkswagen settlement programs, including the Transit and Shuttle Bus program. Send an email to this email address with the word subscribe in the subject line to get signed up. Now we're going to take a look at a general overview of how scoring is going to be done on the Transit and Shuttle Bus program completed applications. There are several factors we are going to take into consideration when evaluating and scoring applications. They include, but are not limited to, the cost effectiveness of the project, the amount of NOx emissions reduced, where the project is located, environmental justice areas, etc. Special considerations will be given to projects where the replacement vehicle is all electric, as well as projects located in historically under-resourced counties across the state. Considerations will also be given to whether or not the project is located in an urban suburban county or a rural county. Projects will be evaluated separately for urban suburban counties and rural counties. This classification is based on information provided by the North Carolina Rural Center. As this map shows, the counties in green are classified as rural, while the counties in blue and orange are classified as suburban or urban. As you can see, the majority of counties in North Carolina do have a classification of rural. Lifetime cost effectiveness will be calculated based on information that you as the applicant provide to us using US EPA's diesel emission quantifier tool, and if applicable, any matching funds that you are putting towards a project. Each project and bus will be evaluated individually for the overall lifetime cost effectiveness. All of the projects submitted will be ranked and given a maximum score of 30 points based on the most cost-effective to least cost-effective as compared to all of the eligible and completed applications that we received. Only one application with the most cost-effective project from all of the completed applications received will receive the maximum score of 30 points. Urban suburban projects and rural projects will be evaluated separately against each other. Lifetime NOx emissions reductions will also be calculated based on information that you as the applicant provide. Once again, we will be using US EPA's diesel emission quantifier tool. Each project and bus will be evaluated individually for the overall lifetime NOx emissions reductions. All of the projects submitted will be ranked and given a score of 30 points maximum based on highest emission reductions to lowest emissions reductions as compared to all of the eligible and completed applications that we received. Only one project with the highest emissions reductions from all of the completed applications received will receive the maximum score of 30 points. Urban suburban projects and rural projects will be evaluated separately against each other. Location scores have already been determined for each county based on a combination of NOx values and Volkswagen vehicle concentrations for each county. We used 2017 mobile NOx estimates taken from the National Emissions Inventory and ranked them accordingly. To determine Volkswagen concentration scores, the number of registered Volkswagen vehicles from each county at the time of the Volkswagen consent decree were assessed and ranked. Point values were assigned accordingly. To get the overall location score for each county, the NOx calculations and the Volkswagen concentration were calculated were added together for a total up to a maximum of 15 points. A summary table of all of these values can be found in Table B1 of the Transit and Shuttle Bus RFP. Environmental justice is defined by the U.S. EPA as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, or income with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. The North Carolina Volkswagen Settlement Team has worked with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's Environmental Justice Program to help us evaluate the impact this has in North Carolina. The Environmental Justice Score has been calculated for every county in the state based on the North Carolina DEQ Social Vulnerability Index and the mobile NOx emissions in tons per year per county from the 2019 American Community Survey 5-year estimates. More information on environmental justice, how the scores were calculated, and the score for each county can be found in Table B1 of the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. Transit and Shuttle Bus RFP. What are the historically under-resourced counties? These are counties across North Carolina that have an underserved population greater than 15%. These counties are also designated as Tier 1 by the North Carolina Department of Commerce. For projects located in one of these counties, additional points will be awarded during the project valuation period. This map shows the counties across North Carolina that are designated under our historically under-resourced county outreach program as meeting the criteria. I have things popping up on my screen. There is a maximum of 110 points. This is the map showing where our historically under-resourced county outreach program is meeting the criteria. This includes a total of 37 counties across North Carolina. This is a summary of the project scoring criteria. There is a maximum of 110 points that can be awarded towards any new bus application. So lifetime cost effectiveness, NOx emissions reductions, location, environmental justice, vehicle electrification, and then the historically under-resourced counties. As I have already stated, the deadline for completed applications to be submitted in the grant management system for the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program is May 2nd, 2022. An application is considered completed if the application form has been submitted in the grant management system and all required attachments have been uploaded as well. The application deadline will not be extended. As an additional reminder, this is the website for the DAQ grant management system. Information on accessing and using the grant management system can be found on our website. This is the only way we will accept applications for the Phase 2 Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. We will not accept paper, scanned, emailed, or faxed applications, and we will definitely not accept applications after the deadline on May 2nd, 2022. As I said before, the Transit and Shuttle Bus RFP was released on February 1st, 2022. Applications also opened up in our grant management system that day as well. In order to apply, you will need to be registered in our grant management system. If you are considering applying, we recommend you go ahead and get registered with the grant management system as soon as possible. Do not wait to do this, since the majority of the process is handled through other state agencies, and we have no control on how long the entire process will take. More information on how to do this is available on our website. Applications will be open for a total of 90 days, so the deadline to apply is May 2nd, 2022. We also strongly encourage you to not wait until the last minute to apply. The application deadline will not be extended. Following the application deadline, we will be evaluating the applications over the following couple of months and hopefully making award announcements this summer in July sometime. Once again, here's our website address for the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program. Also, if you do have questions after today's webinar, send an email with the subject line Transit Program Question to this email address. There are several resources and partners with Phase 1 experience out there that you can utilize in Phase 2. This is a list of many of those partners. Contact information for this list is available on our website. And this is our contact information. My information is at the top. I am the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program Manager. Brian Phillips is my supervisor, and he heads up the Volkswagen Settlement Program overall. Robin Barrows handles our Volkswagen outreach. This concludes the presentation. Now let's get to the questions in the Q&A box. I'm going to turn this over to Jill.
Okay, we only have one question currently, and that comes from Rick's Longobart, and he would like to know, can the one charger per grant be one charger with 2 connection ports?
I may need a little help from my team here. Brian?
I need more of a clarification what you mean by charging with 2 ports. That's for 2 ports to charge one vehicle?
Let's go ahead here. Hold on. Rick's clarified, he says one charger that has 2 leads.
You'd probably be best to send that question to Melanie directly with more details on what that charger would do. If it's 2 chargers for one vehicle, I would say yes. If it's one charger to charge 2 vehicles, probably gonna be a no. It has to be one charger per vehicle. But we would need more information to give you a clear answer on that.
Okay, we did have a question about whether the recording would be made available, and that was answered in the question and answers, but it was yes, we will be providing the recording
Yes.
on our website.
Do give us a few days to get the recording up on our website, but it will be there.
Okay, the next question is from John Ando. He would like to know, if you have gasoline powered buses, can you apply for this funding?
No. The Volkswagen settlement requires that we replaced old diesel buses with engine model year 2009 or older. So the old bus has to be diesel.
Okay. Randy Hume would like to know, if we have a contract with a vehicle manufacturer with options, will buses purchased under these options not yet executed be eligible for the VW program?
So if you have not ordered the buses themselves, they would be eligible. But if you have already ordered the actual buses, no.
Okay. Matthew Stevens would like to know, all our vehicles are gasoline powered and the oldest is a 2015 engine. We would not be eligible, correct?
That is correct. Once again, the old vehicle must be a diesel Class 4 through Class 8 transit or shuttle bus, and the engine model year must be 2009 or before.
Okay. Sean Royal would like to know, what companies would you recommend looking at to get quotes on a bus?
I unfortunately cannot recommend companies. I would suggest that you take a look at our partner agency list on our website and maybe touch base with them and see if they have any information that can help you out. But I cannot recommend anyone.
Okay. Carrie Hartung would like to know, are federal government entities eligible to apply for this grant?
I believe the answer is no. It has to be state, local, or tribal government entities. My Volkswagen team can correct me if I'm wrong.
Must be you're right, Melanie.
Melanie, this is Robin. I just want to ask a clarifying question. If the federal agency she's referring to is a tribe, then yes.
Yes. But in terms of federal government, such as EPA that I've mentioned a few times, they could not apply. But if it is a tribal agency, then yes, they are eligible.
Okay, next question is from Wood Davidson. Can chargers be paired? In other words, 62.5 kilowatt hours as a single and 125 kilowatt hours when paired? That might be a question for Dave.
I was going to say, I am not a charger expert, so I'll defer to Dave.
All right, I think that one will have to be answered outside of the this.
Yeah, we may have to get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay, the next question is from Sean Royal. If we have never had a transit bus and looking to buy a new one for the first time, are we eligible to apply for this grant?
The answer is no. Unfortunately, you do have to have an existing transit or shuttle bus that is diesel and it has a engine model year of 2009 or earlier that is being replaced. If you are just wanting to outright buy a bus and not replacing, that is not eligible under the Volkswagen settlement.
Okay. John Ando would like to know, can you use this funding to pay for bus chargers only?
For the transit and shuttle bus program, no, you cannot. If you are interested in
Melanie, hold on. I think you answered that kind of backwards.
If you're just applying for chargers, the answer is no, not under the transit and shuttle bus program. We do have other ZEV infrastructure programs that will be coming out over the next few months. I recommend that it may be eligible for just chargers. I recommend you sign up for our email list and check out our website.
It would not. The other charging infrastructure programs are only for light duty vehicles, not heavy duty vehicles.
Can I add on here, please? If the charger goes with the purchase of a bus, then yes.
That is correct.
So let's be clear, please.
For the transit and shuttle bus program, funding for infrastructure is only allowed in conjunction with the purchase of a bus. So if you are going to replace an old diesel bus with a new all-electric bus, then you could apply for that new all-electric bus as well as up to $75,000 for charging infrastructure for that all-electric bus.
Okay. Rick Slongabart would like to know, can the charger be a DC fast charger as opposed to level 2?
As far as I know, that is not an issue. Once again, we would only allow funding for up to $75,000. I know there will be some situations where level 2 would be appropriate, but there may be situations that a DC fast would be appropriate.
Okay, Lisa Marasco would like to know, where is the language found in the grant for the charger?
What specifically with the charger? If it's in the In the RFP, we do have the funding limits, but in terms of the type of charger, I don't know that we have specifics written out, at least not in the transit and shuttle bus program.
That's correct. We do not specify the charger specifications in the RFP, just the maximum amount that's refundable.
Okay. Carrie clarified that she's with NIH, so the federal agency.
Yeah, so federal agency, the National Institutes of Health, that would not be eligible.
Okay. Wood Davidson wants to know, are we responsible for the cost to scrap the old bus? Is that cost covered?
You are responsible for scrapping the old bus, but what you do with the scrapped bus afterwards is up to you.
Okay. Cynthia Matthews asks, is a nonprofit federally funded agency eligible to apply?
If you are a public or private nonprofit, you are eligible to apply.
Okay, and then Lisa Marasco clarified it. She says, you stated that dual chargers weren't allowed, but now just stated no specific language on type, only the $75,000 limit. Why no dual port chargers allowed?
With the transit and shuttle bus program, we are allowing one charger per bus. And so with the dual port, that would be allowing charging for 2 buses, and that we're only covering the charging infrastructure for what could charge 1 bus.
Okay, the next question says, does the $75,000 cap on chargers include electrical? So the conduit and those kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say it could.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I see, unless somebody sees that I missed one. We'll give it a minute or so to see if any other questions pop up.
In addition to putting a copy of this presentation on our website, we will be at some point updating our facts section. So these questions and answers could possibly be added to our website. For anything that anybody wants additional information on, I recommend you send an email to this email address with transit program question, especially if weren't able to give you a clear enough answer today, because some of it we may need to check into and get back to you.
I also want to add that on our VW website, we have a link to an eligibility tool. If you are not sure if you're eligible for funding, you might want to go through that tool to see if you are. It's pretty comprehensive.
Okay, we do have another question from John Bonnets. Can you anticipate what might be done in case of delays in manufacturing?
In terms of if you are awarded funding, we will work with you and get a 2-year contract. If there are issues down the road towards the end of that 2-year contract, we will work with you. But our standard contract is 2 years, and we do take into account delays in manufacturing. This is if you are awarded Volkswagen settlement funding.
Okay, the next question is from Carrie Hartung. Could an applicant combine their own funds with grant funds if they wanted to install a dual port charger? So in other words, the grant funds for the single port and their own funds to upgrade to a dual port.
That is possible. You would just want to include all of that information in your application and on the budget screen and any attachments you have.
I don't see any more questions right now.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. As we've said, if you, we will be putting a copy of the recording of this webinar up on our website. If you do have any questions after today, please send an email to this email address. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks, everybody.